Hello, Phil here, just popping in before this week's episode starts to tell you some exciting Everybody is Dead Dave news. We now have a merch store. So if you've ever thought, I'd really like a t-shirt, hoodie, mug, bag or face mask with cartoon versions of Adam and Phil on them, well now is your time. Head on over to every-body-is-dead-dave.creator-spring.com. Yeah, sorry about all the dashes there. I'll leave the link in the description of the YouTube version of this podcast as well. Anyway, now we return you to your regular programming.
The Dead Dave.
What, Captain Hollister?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Todd Hunter? What, Selby? Not Chen.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Hello, welcome to Everybody is Dead Dave, the Red Dwarf review podcast where we make our way through every single episode of Red Dwarf from the end to the beginning. And that we in question is myself, Philip Hawkins, a long-term fan of the show that has been watching since the 90s, and Adam Martyn, a
That's
newbie.
me. Yes, the relative newbie to the show.
So
first 6 seasons, got him down, you know.
You're a newbie to every episode we come to. You've now
That's
been watching
exactly
for quite a
right.
while.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. This week we are talking about the series, whatever you want to call it, Series 7 episode Duct Soup, in which the crew are forced to trawl through a labyrinth of service ducts to restart the engines. Well, this sort of starts off kind of that Kachanski and Listas can't sleep for different reasons, but one of them is really hot. Lista's really hot. And I do love the fact that there's a read-up where he said it's 92 degrees. I'm guessing they're talking Fahrenheit because they'd be dead if it was Celsius.
Yeah.
Given this is a British show, it's very strange that they're using Fahrenheit. But there you go. But also strange is the little thermostat readout that you can see next to his bed that says the temperature and where it says 92 degrees. I don't know if you noticed this, but it's just very clearly a printed sticker.
Oh, I didn't see it. I mean, it might be my eyes, but no, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it just is obviously printed on there. It's not an actual digital display. It's not even attempted to make it look like a proper digital display. It is very obviously a sticker with 92 in that kind of digital clock typeface.
Yes, the classic.
Yeah, but I just find it quite funny that they just done this as a printed sticker and not really put any effort into making it look real.
The budget had to run out somewhere. Maybe it was here. Maybe
that is true. And in many ways, this is the budget-saving episode because it's the bottle episode.
Yes.
Where they don't really go anywhere apart from one location, two locations, if you include
Well, it made me think with this series, because obviously this is the first series we've had, which is 8 episodes instead of 6. So I'd like to think they must have had a bigger budget to start with. You'd like to think.
You'd hope so, yeah.
Otherwise, because as you say, this was the bottle in terms of it was like the main Starbug set. They don't go on any planets or anything like that. So obviously you might know, but I'm thinking, are we going to get at least another one like this? You know, because they've added those 2 extra episodes, or if this is going to be the only one. But yeah, I'd be curious to find that out, actually, if there's, a source. If any listeners know about the budget stuff, let us know. I'd just be curious to know, do you know what I mean? If the budget was increased for the more, or if they just said, no, we're doing 8 this time, but you've still got the same amount of money.
Yeah, I would imagine they would have increased it. We were talking before we started recording as well about the missing episode of this series, which was one of the, because there were multiple writers that came on with this series. It wasn't just Doug Naylor. Previously, it had obviously been the other writer as well, whose name has gone out of my head.
Rob Grant, isn't it?
Rob Grant, that's it. But he had departed at the end of last series. But Doug Naylor brought on some new writers and commissioned several writers to come up with scripts, which didn't make it all the way to the end. But the one that got closest was an episode about Cat, which is on the DVDs in what's the word I'm looking for? Storyboard form.
Yeah, storyboard
with Chris
form,
Barry narrating it and doing all the voices. So I think we're going to do an episode on that.
Yes, we'll cover it. And it's Identity Within, I think it's called.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And the reason it got cut and didn't make it to the end was budgetary. It was the fact that it was too expensive. It involved too many locations, too many guest actors. So this episode, I think, was written to replace that one.
Right. Okay.
From what I've read in the booklet that comes with the DVD, which I had to rush out and buy from CES yesterday.
Oh, the emergency! Yeah.
Anybody that follows our
BritBox.
Twitter account will have seen this. I went to watch the episode the day we were due to record it, and found out that it had disappeared from BritBox. So I had to, luckily, my local CEX, which is, for those who don't know, who may be abroad, is a kind of local, a chain store in the UK which
like a
sells
second-hand
secondhand DVDs, video games, electronics, that kind of thing. And luckily, I had noticed a couple of weeks ago that they had almost every series of Red Dwarf in there. Really cheap as well. They're
Just
only
by
about
chance.
£1 each.
Yeah.
And I went back and thankfully, some of them had sold, but thankfully not this series. So I managed to pick it up on DVD to watch.
Yeah. And can I just say, before we crack on with the story, a gripe with the Blu-ray, which is really weird. So I'm watching these on Blu-ray. I've got the Series 1 to 8 box set. Now, Series 1 to 6 were they had 2 discs each dedicated to them, right? Disc 1, for all of them, were the 6 episodes, or, all the episodes in the season. And disc 2 would be the special features, the smeg-ups, the documentaries, anything like that. Now, Series 7, I didn't realise, has 3 discs. And on disc 1 is just the first 3 episodes of the series. So I loaded it in, went through all the copyright screens, and this episode wasn't there. So I was like, what? And it's on disc 2, which has the rest, and then disc 3 is special features. So unless disc 3 is like jam-packed, the need to put it across 3 discs, considering Blu-ray has way more storage than DVD, just seems very bizarre. But that was a small minor gripe. But I've got to say, in this opening, though, as fun as it was to see, I haven't said this in a while, actually, Adam's age-old criticism is coming back.
Oh.
The jokes were too long. No,
Get the bingo cards out.
Get the bingo. We should do that, actually. Adam
should.
says it's too long. No, I just thought, the concepts were good. Lister being the to pee or not to pee thing, and Kachanski going mad at the pipe. Good. I don't know what it was. And again, obviously, as I always say, because to avoid angry commenters, comedy's subjective. It's all different. But for me, these segments, if you like, just went on a little bit too long. Do you know what I mean? I felt like the peak of the jokes they were going for came and went, and then we were just hanging around. And I was like, okay, can we go somewhere else now? Do you know what I mean? That's how I felt.
Yeah, I do. And they're not that funny jokes.
No,
either in
not
this
really.
Bit. It's Kachanski getting a bit neurotic about the annoying pipes and the fact that they're not doing the same pattern that she'd established that they were doing. They go ka-chunk, and then they go something else, but then they throw in a squeakle or something, and she gets annoyed at that, and that's kind of her bit. And then there's, as you said, there's Lister who's trying to decide if he's going to pee or not, and then eventually goes for a shower, and he comes out and says 2 birds, 1 stone.
Yes. That's the slob Lister we're used to, isn't it?
Yeah, and then retrieves his pillow from the fridge. I've heard about this pillow in a fridge trick before. I've never done it myself. I've never had room in my fridge.
What's it meant to do?
It's meant to just cool down and just be nice to lay on afterwards in a hot sort of, if you're in a heat wave or whatever, just be nice and cool. I've never done it because I've never had enough free space in my fridge. But have you ever put a pillow in a fridge?
I can't say I have, Phil. Can't say I have.
Has anybody else tried this at home?
Yeah,
I've
let us
heard
know
about
if you've tried this.
Does it work?
Yeah. I did like the comment, though, at the start of the next scene when Kachanski bumps into Crichton and he says, "Oh, look, it's Princess Leia." That made me laugh a little bit.
Yes. So Star Wars survives as a cultural institution into the 20 whatever they are in century.
Because we've had
4th, 23rd, something
24th,
like that.
something like that. Yeah, but we've had Star Trek referenced, haven't we? Before?
That's true. We have. Yeah.
So both Star Wars and Star Trek exist within this universe.
And the Flintstones.
And the Flintstones. Not Doctor Who yet. Of course, we mentioned about little Doctor Who Easter eggs, but they haven't directly, as far as I've heard, referenced anything there. So maybe the jury's out on that one.
Maybe that just didn't survive into the 21st, 22nd, 23rd,
maybe.
Whatever century they're in, which is sad.
Yeah.
This whole scene with Crichton establishes the sort of core dynamics of the episode. Where Crichton, again, we established this last week. I kind of like that it's carrying over the fact that he's slightly jealous and doesn't really like Kachanski being there.
Yeah, he doesn't care for it at all, really.
Not
does he?
really, no.
No.
And that it also kind of continues over these things from last episode of Kachanski being out of place, feeling out of place because she's the only woman. Because she still talks about how this is a boy's fridge while taking shoes out of it. Again, something I'd like to point out that I have never put in a fridge.
No, can't say I've done that either. Is that, I guess, similar principle? Like keep your feet
I
cold,
assume
cool
so. On a hot
warm
day.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I, do you know what though? This whole scene, as fun as moments were, like it's weird because obviously we're still getting used to this Kachanski, not just the actor but the character as well. And the whole how she was acting about the situation, part of me thought this. I wasn't clicking with it at first, but then I did write. I was like, well, I have to remind myself this is technically a very different Kachanski in general, not just actor. You know, this is a different Kachanski to the one we knew from series 1, 2,
from
and
a
onwards.
different
You know
universe.
what I mean? Yeah. So,
yeah.
But yeah, but I couldn't help but feel that at first. I was like, I don't know about. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I don't know about this. I think we discussed it last week as well when we had Sophie on. I think at first we were a bit not hesitant, but you know, it's different. It's very different.
It
so
is.
I think I've just got to remember that.
We talked about last week about how the way they were writing her, were they going to fall into the traps of portraying, the one woman in the crew as sort of like always needing help, always being that kind of stereotype of the nagging one, and etc. But apparently, interestingly, it was the actress herself that asked to be able to play up the sort of neuroses of the character, which is quite a heavy feature of this episode, I think.
Yes, yeah.
So,
if it was the actor's choice, I think it's that thing when you go chronologically. I'm adapting to this new Kachanski, so I think that's what I keep telling myself. It's not trying to criticize Chloe Annette's performance. I think it's just my mind being like, this isn't the same Kachanski as the one you saw before. That's what I need to keep telling myself.
Yeah, and this episode does play up a lot of these male-female stereotypes quite a lot.
Yeah, to mix success, I think.
Yeah, Kryter makes a joke about, or somebody, I can't remember which one of them says it initially, but somebody says something about knickers being watching women's
I think
knickers
Kachanski says it first, yeah,
yes,
and then we cut
it.
to the washroom scene.
And they're actually, Kat and Lista are actually doing that.
Did anyone actually ever do that? Any older members of the audience? Do you want to let us know if that ever actually happened? Because that just to me at least that just seems really weird.
It does seem weird, doesn't it? Like
why
how
would
is
you do
watching
that?
some underwear go around a washing machine titillating at all? I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, hey, maybe in the pre-internet days, who knows? But again, if you're a listener, if you knew this happened, if you knew someone who did this, you don't have to out them, but just let us know that this was a thing, because yeah, and again, this was made in 1997, so time has moved on. But yeah, it was just very, very big. Maybe it was just a thing for this episode. Do you know what I mean? Maybe just a thing for that. But I'd like to think this never happened in real life, but it probably did.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just a symptom of being stuck in deep space for 3 million years without anything else
possibly,
to titillate you. You descend to watching underwear in a washing machine. I don't know. But I did like the line that Craig Charles then has, that he decides he's too mature for this and he's going to go back to reading his comic.
Yes, yeah. Great oxymoron there, exactly, yeah.
That got a laugh out of me. And I say that as an adult comic reader. So
yeah. No shame, folks.
No shame, but it still got a laugh out of me. One thing that Kachanski does drop is that she was brought up in as she says, the trendier part of Glasgow, so she is Scottish despite not having a Scottish accent.
Yeah, and I wrote at first, I was like, that makes me wonder. They've referenced it, so why didn't they give her this? Because I can't remember from the early days, because obviously she did have a Scottish accent, but was she presented in those first few seasons as being like a prim and proper, like posh person? Because the way she talks about her past, about going to the good school, and she mentioned it last week.
Well,
was that a thing before?
She was an officer, so maybe, possibly, she was sort of among the higher ranks of the ship. So
it made me think though, and this is just a theory, just speculation. The whole thing about a Scottish accent. Maybe they went with a more like standard English RP because I thought, is this maybe to try and help like get the Rimmer vibe? Because of course Rimmer's not here in this episode at all. He's, for those maybe who are new, well, you got to go back and catch up. But and I must be honest, I didn't feel the gap at first, but it was as that scene was going on where she's talking about Glasgow and her childhood, and then I don't know, my head was like, oh yeah, but she sounds a bit like Rimmer, you know, in terms of like accent and stuff. So maybe is it trying to fill that vibe? Again, this is just a theory. I've got no confirmation of it. But
Chloe Arnett can't do a Scottish accent, possibly. And so
maybe not.
Or didn't want to do a Scottish accent, possibly. Maybe she requested that she didn't do a Scottish accent. I guess again, but they liked her enough.
And they can get away with it. Again, different Kachanski and types, parallel worlds, you know.
Yeah,
maybe you can get away with anything.
Maybe she grew up a bit more posher in that world, and she got sent to a private school or something where she didn't in the other one, which drilled in a more English
just
accent.
An interesting theory to
reason.
contemplate, I thought. I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is very strange.
But Listas being a good gentleman, isn't he? Well, at the start of this episode, he is.
Yes, he is clearly trying to, and it's pointed out that he is not being his usual self. He's being less slobby. He's being, a bit more mature. He's trying to be more mature in order to impress her.
Yes, yeah.
And he goes so far as to like run her a bath.
Yes, yeah, very kind, very kind.
And because she's obviously very stressed, he offers her his room, which isn't next to the horrible engine noise that's causing the pipes, or the waste disposal unit that's causing the pipes to make all that horrible noise. So for the night, he's going to offer her his room. He'll swap rooms, and he's run her a nice bath with stuff. I think although it is hinted he has an ulterior motive there, because he does start hinting like, so I'll go then. Shall I?
But I like that she very swiftly is like, yeah, all right, bye-bye then, or whatever. Or she's like, oh, cool. The bit I like was where he's like, give me a shout if you need anything. And she's like, I won't. I like that. That made me chuckle.
Yeah, and this is where Crichton's paranoia, because he comes into full
Crichton's
force.
Vision, yes, yeah.
He has this like vision of like the potential future of if this bath goes ahead and Lister rubs her back, that it's going to lead to these two getting together, and imagining him asking him to leave and saying they've outgrown him and they don't need him anymore.
Yeah, and they find him embarrassing, and he's a robot. And
they want to have dinner parties. And when they first said that, I was like, who are you going to have dinner parties with? You're in deep space and you don't, there's no other humans around. Then we find out who they're going to have dinner parties with in Crichton's imagination.
Yes.
It's the Gelf.
It's the for some the Gelf who are currently hunting them. But in this world, it's all been sorted out.
It's all been sorted out. He's got an amicable divorce from his Gelf wife.
Amicable divorce.
Now he's inviting her and her. Isn't it lovely that he can invite his ex around with their new partner to come and have dinner together?
It's hard. What's it? Wholesome, very wholesome.
Very wholesome.
But, also, it was also a bit sad. You hear the audience like go, oh, when he has to. I mean, partly down to Robert Llewelyn's, I think, performance as well. He doesn't go over the top with like bursting into tears, but the way he portrays Crichton's in this vision, like the shock and the sadness. I don't know. I thought it was a mixture. It was really funny, but it was also like, oh man, that's really sad. But it's definitely his paranoia getting the best of him. They really zoomed into his eye as well, and I was like, whoa, you can tell this was filmed on standard definition videotape, at least on the blue, because when it like goes closer to his eye like that, it like zooms. I'm doing something with my hand, folks. Like it like zooms in. It might. Well, at first I thought, oh, is that like an overlay? But then when it zooms out, it doesn't change, and I was like, oh yeah, they just zoomed in on a standard definition image. And when you do that and you're watching it on Blu-ray, bit blocky, but it was what they had. It's fine.
Yeah, they all end up in this. I can't remember how the cat ends up in there as well, but they all end up in there in Lister's quarters at one point.
How does he end up in there?
I can't remember.
It's really bad that or does he just walk in? He might
probably
just walk in.
Probably just walks in
as he does.
Goes to see what's going on, all the kerfuffles about, and then there's a power failure, and they're all locked in the cabin because the doors have sealed and there's no power, and they're going to go for an asteroid field in 12 hours, so they need to get to the cockpit. And so the bath's off, and now they have to crawl through the ducts of the ship.
They do.
That's ducts, not ducks.
Ducts, yes.
I always struggle with that.
Yeah, and we learn pretty quickly that Lista's claustrophobic. And I've got to admit here, to start with, as soon as they were like, right, Kachanski was like, I'll stay with you, and the others went off, part of me did think, I was like, please don't tell me he's acting claustrophobic just to get some alert. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because they sort of gave that hint.
Manipulate,
yeah, like the whole thing with the bath, and then he's like, oh yeah, maybe I'll stick her out. It was only for a moment, but I was like, please don't tell me we're just doing this as a ploy, because I think then that's a bit. I don't know, that idea doesn't sit well with me, but thankfully it doesn't go down that route. I'm happy to say it didn't go down that route.
No.
So.
And the claustrophobia, I think, had been referenced before. I think there's a scene, I think way, way, way back when, you remember Confidence and Paranoia?
Oh, yes.
I think
yeah.
there's something about the spacesuit. I think he says something about maybe
he
being
might
claustrophobic.
do, yeah.
Possibly.
Oh, that's a long time ago, isn't it?
That is a
Phil,
long time
us?
ago. It's hard to remember. I mean, that was a good, 6 months more or more ago?
It was, yeah.
For us.
Oh, wow. Yeah, but they do get some alone time, if you like, Kachanski and Lister.
Yeah, and they have a conversation about her Dave, where she tells him that he wasn't her. They weren't really a couple, him and her Dave. They were just friends, and that he wasn't her type.
Yes,
and then she says he was gay.
He was gay. Yes, yeah.
Which kind of throws Lister a bit,
being the stereotypical heterosexual male who is like, what, gay people, what, question mark, like,
yeah. And there are some stereotype things in this bit, like he mentions that
what was it, the big mustache?
He couldn't be gay, he can't even grow a mustache.
Yeah, I heard that and I was like,
yeah. And then there was the friend he called Bent Bob.
Yeah, behind his back as well. Might I point out, which again is.
And this is when she's challenging him on, "Oh, do you even have any gay friends?" Because she says, "I had loads of gay friends on Red Dwarf," and he's like, "So did I." And it's like, "Who?" And then he really struggles to think of one, and
which is like the stereotypical defense, isn't it, of those out there who, I guess, are like very macho. They go, "Oh, I've got loads of gay friends," and you're like, "Right, who?" And they're like, so and so. Oh, but I don't class them as a friend. But I did like the line though, because obviously Kachanski's being framed as the progressive one, which I like considering this is 1997. But I like the line where, what was it? She's like, she's talking about in her universe at first, who was gay, like Tom Hunter or whatever that person.
Todd Hunter, yeah,
that's it, yeah. And it's like, oh, he says, I didn't know they were gay, and it's like, oh, what? She says, like, you just didn't know that they were. It was that line about or it was something to do with that line about you like Lister's been surrounded by gay people. He just didn't know that they were.
Yeah,
that sort of like not being out and proud, which it was, because I think that still sadly exists, maybe not as much as it did 25 years ago, but I'm sure there are some out there who are gay and for whatever reason feel like they can't be open about it. Which is a shame.
Absolutely.
So it's like, in that context, you could say, like in your workplace, there might be gay people who work there, but you just don't know because they don't tell you for whatever reason. So, however it was delivered, I just liked that line. I thought it was delivered very well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel a bit, I don't know how to feel about this scene because it ends with her basically saying she made it all up to distract him from his claustrophobia. So... Yeah. So I guess she was in a relationship with her Dave in the end, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, this
was
is
all left a bit unclear.
Yeah, this is one of the longest scenes as well that like we've had in Red Dwarf. Do you know what I mean? Like of just two characters just talking. And I know, like you said, this is the budget-saving episode, so I guess that allows us more time. And I do like these longer scenes with Lister in particular because I think we've said of this series so far, it is giving him a lot more development as a character. But yeah, with this whole thing, like, well, the first part, so with Kachanski, I think I would have preferred it if the stuff about alternative Lister being gay was real.
Yeah.
I think it would have had a greater, like, impact or weight to the scene. And she was just trying to make a point about Dave, whether it was our Dave being, whether it was, more accepting or more alert or more, whatever the aim was. I just think it would have been more powerful if that hadn't been got ya, just trying to.
Yeah, but it wasn't really a got ya.
Not a got ya. No, sorry, wrong term.
Because I do quite like the fact that it was to take his mind off the claustrophobia, and it worked. And he realizes after that, I am fine. Of course, 2 minutes later, the cat comes in and undoes all that good work. But
Yes.
but at that moment, you're like, oh yeah, thanks. And it was a useful thing. So I'm kind of in two minds about it. I kind of from a wider storytelling perspective, outside of this particular plot, I think, that would have been interesting if Dave, had actually been gay. But in this particular moment, it kind of it makes, I don't know, it just makes sense and
No, that's fair enough.
Works.
That's fair enough. We can leave it to the what if land. And as you say, Cat comes along and sort of ruins the whole distraction thing, which did make me chuckle.
Talking about like how they're in a cramped space again, and like,
which is typical Cat, isn't it? Really, like
completely oblivious to anybody else's sort of feelings.
But then we get this again, another like just scene of the two of them talking, and he's Listas talking about cashier number 4 that he fell in love with, and I've got to be honest, the punchline for the whole thing didn't really quite land for me. I don't know what it was. I'm not going to say it went on too long, but it's like, because he starts to start, cashier number 4 fell in love with her. You're like, okay, we're getting a story here that has a punchline. But I don't know, it just didn't land for me. And when the scene transitioned, I was like, oh, all right, that was it. Do you know what I mean? I guess I'm questioning whether this obviously it's great with Lister and Cat, but I don't know. Part of me thinks, could we have done something else with that 2-3 minutes? That's just me though, just my opinion. But what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, the story about the cashier didn't really go anywhere particularly interesting, I guess.
It just sort of happened. He just sort of tells it, and then it's like, right, and now this, and it's like, but what? I don't know. It just didn't work for me.
And while this is going on, Kachanski has gone off and is helping Crichton, and they have their own little conversation. And he's like,
in which case, Mom, why does he keep looking at you in the same way a starving man would look at a packet of roasted peanuts?
Well, it's because...
It's because, ma'am, he can't wait to get the wrapper off and taste the salty goodness.
Also, he says, I see the way you look at him as well. And she's all defensive. She's like, no, I'm taken. So I guess actually, yes, she must be with the other Dave.
Yeah.
So she says, I'm taken. And there's a recurring thing about cottage cheese with pineapple chunks, because that was part of the like stereotype conversation earlier, was that Crichton says, something about all you women, you want your cottage cheese with pineapple chunks. Or something like that.
Yeah.
And here he says he looks at her like she looks at him like he's cottage cheese with pineapple chunks. I've never heard of cottage. Is that that sounds like a very 80s type of...
To me, that sounds disgusting. I couldn't think of anything worse.
Actually,
honestly, if you like it, fair enough. But the idea of that combination just makes me feel a bit icky.
Yeah, and then there's the kind of accidental reveal that she accidentally reveals something to him.
Oh, the Rusty Gate.
The Rusty Gate story, because he says, Mr. Lister tells me everything.
You mean he told you about the Rusty Gate?
Oh, the Rusty Gate. That was one of the first things he told us. Yeah, we all had a good laugh about that.
He told you that? He told you that I make a sound like a rusty gate when I'm making love? He told you that?
No, he told us his grandma once had a rusty gate, and he helped fix it.
But then he files that under blackmail to use later.
Which makes me think we're going to have more of this Crichton Kachanski beef or confrontation as the series progresses.
Yeah, the kind of conflict doesn't really resolve in this episode, does it?
No, they just sort of talk about it, and if they're going to resolve it later on, that's fine. But like you say, where they have this it just sort of happens, and then we move on to the next thing. So, but yeah. Isn't it might be this scene, I could be wrong. Is there the joke about the salted peanuts? Something like that. I just wrote goodness me, because it took me by surprise, because it's very on the nose. Separate though, I really like the music in this episode. I thought there was lots of great little incidental music notes, like when they're crawling. There was one sting where when they're crawling through, like some really nice synth notes there. When Crichton has his vision, the music there I thought was really good. Yeah, just a lot of great incidental music. I've commented on it before, but some certain episodes stand out to me more music-wise, and I'd say this was definitely one of them. So.
You know what? I don't think I've ever really paid much attention to the music in Red Dwarf, other than when they break into song.
Yeah. Well, there's not that much, because, with a sitcom, there's never really that much music overall, because, you need the laugh track, and you need to hear
That's true, but they
saying.
probably have, and again, I haven't really noticed it, but thinking about it, they probably have increased it a bit this series with their whole trying to make it more cinematic and everything that they were trying to do. So, yeah. But I didn't notice it myself.
No, for sure. What I heard, I really liked. On cinematics, though, what did you think about the whole, riding through the ducts with the water? If you want to talk about that.
It was a nice idea. It was built up fairly nicely because we get the scene where Cat, using his advanced cat hearing, of course, hears the water coming, and he doesn't quite get what he's like. It's a whooshy, watery thing.
Yes,
and it takes Lister to realize what it is. And then we get, after they've escaped that one, we get the dryer, and again, Cat is very vague. It's like, yeah, there's this whooshy, drying-y, hot sound.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do eventually use that to get where they want to go quickly, because they realize they've been knocked off course and are actually heading into a sun. So they sort of surf it.
Yeah.
It was okay. It looked...
No, there was a few reused shots in there.
Yeah.
Very quickly reused shots. So I was like, oh, didn't we just see that? And then, when they hit the rail at the end, when they come to the end of the ride, if you like, and they're up against the grate, that was... It just seemed a little weird, the first few seconds, because obviously it's funny, they've hit this grate and they're all jammed against it and they're like, ah. But it just seems like they held that shot for a very long, or it felt like they held it for a very long time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you felt that.
I guess that was probably to give us time to take in how wet and disheveled they all looked.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, remember, folks, it's all just subjective. But to me, I was like, this is going on for, we're holding here for it felt like a very long time. I don't know.
When they do then go down through a grating or whatever to get to hopefully where they were planning on going, they realize they are back at the quarters where they started off.
Full circle. And sorry, we haven't mentioned this yet, but before they surf the thingamajig, Crichton reveals something that he's been
of course, yes,
keeping secret with the thermostat.
Yeah, he overloaded the thermostat. So
and why did he do that, Phil?
Couldn't have her bath because he didn't want her to have a bath and then have a back rub from Lister, and they end up together and discard him.
What I kind of like, though, in that revelation, obviously Crichton typically is, very high, he does this high voice thing again.
He did that last episode as well, didn't he? It was.
It does work, to be fair. Yeah. I think it does. But what I liked is obviously Kachanski's like, oh my god, I can't believe this, because to her they talked about it last time, and it was the end of last episode when he's like, oh yeah, I'll get along with you, but he's like, not really. I like how Lister doesn't dwell on it in that moment. He's just sort of like, we ain't got time for this, and cracks on. I don't know. I just like that. I like that he acknowledges, obviously, how daft it is on Crichton's part, but he doesn't go on a big spiel about, that's... Do you know what I mean? He just sort of gets on with the task at hand. I like that.
Yeah.
Although he does mention something in the quarters. You say
well,
another
I was going to say, there's
come.
another revelation where he not only did the thing that ended up putting them in trouble in the first place and locking them in the room, but actually they weren't even locked in the room, because he had undone the thing that would lock down the doors, so they could have got out any time, but he wanted them to be distracted so that she wouldn't have the bath. So he put Lister through all that claustrophobia for no reason whatsoever, and Lister is fuming, and I like the fact that you can see that he's absolutely fuming, but like you said, he doesn't go on a massive big speech about it. He's just like, I will deal with you later, and he storms out because they've got to move the ship from crashing into the sun.
Yeah, and then we're left with Crichton and Kachanski, aren't we? And what we can explain what happens there.
Yeah, well, initially she seems kind of the most calm about it and the most okay about it.
Yeah, she doesn't seem too annoyed.
And Crichton's like, oh wait, I think I realize you have taken this as a opportunity to bond with your fellow crew members, and she's just standing there sort of smugly smiling at him while he's going on this thing about how she's used it to learn a lesson and things, and then she just hits him with the spanner
repeatedly. And then the episode ends. I mean, this an interesting episode I wrote. Like, again, I didn't think until you said it at the beginning that this is like the bottle episode. But now that you say that it makes so much sense as we're going back through it. And part of me, I don't know what you think, part of me thinks it works to the show's advantage in this episode. And then there's other parts where, to me, it feels like it doesn't.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we know Red Dwarf can do like limited sets. You know, the whole first season was like one or two sets,
and
so we know
it
works.
Sort of the episode Marooned was in many ways structurally very similar to this.
But there's just certain bits that, for me at least, just didn't quite. I think we've gone through them, but like, you know, some of the jokes, the longer scenes, just some of it just didn't land.
Yeah,
and I wonder if that's, like you said, if Identity Within the missing episode was shelved, it makes me wonder how quick, like how much time did they have to, you know, write this to fill? Was it during the early stages, or was this decided? It must have been early-ish if they were only on the storyboard. So I don't know how far that is. Do you know what I mean, though? I'm wondering how much time in the preparation of this series they had to craft this as a replacement.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot in this episode which I think I like in concept and I think was needed, because this is basically the Kachanski integrating herself into the crew episode.
Yes.
After the episode where she comes aboard, and there's a lot of that kind of establishing of the dynamics between the cast, between her and Lister, and between her and Crichton particularly. I mean, there's not much between her and the cat, but that's always the way with the cat. That was probably needed, and there's some nice stuff in there, but there's also, I don't know, there's just a lot of it that just doesn't. They're kind of like nice as individual little bits that kind of feel like they're necessary, and there is some good character stuff in there, but it just doesn't gel. I don't know. There's just something about it that doesn't gel.
It's like the cohesion that binds it all together. It's just sort of haphazard a bit sometimes. Like I was saying, we get these scenes where they go on, like the longer scenes, which is fine in concept, but then like sometimes if it's a joke, the punchline just sort of happens, and then we move scenes, and it's like, right, so what was the idea there? It just, this is the first time in a while where I felt a Red Dwarf episode has just sort of been like a bit all over the place in a way.
Yeah.
Not always in a bad way. As we've said, there are good bits to it. But yeah, especially for this series as well, which I've really enjoyed so far, Series 7. Obviously, we've gone from, doing everything they do, like jumping about different places, different locations. So yeah, obviously it's a stark contrast. But yeah, I don't know, it fell a little short for me compared to the last 3 episodes of this series, personally. But I'm sure it has its fans too. Before we do our regular segments, a fun fact, on the Blu-ray, there is an extended edition.
There is on the DVDs as well.
Oh, is there? I only watched the standard one.
So did I, because I figured that's the one we probably should review.
But I noticed in the runtime, the extended one is about 4 minutes longer. And I think one of those minutes is a title sequence, because I pressed play to like find out the length. But I noticed on the standard edition, on the Blu-ray anyway, it just opens with Red Dwarf 7 and then goes like a title card, if you like, and then goes straight into it. Whereas when I hit play on the extended edition, it does the full title sequence with the music. So I'm guessing one of those minutes is a title sequence. But if you're curious, then you can watch the extended edition.
Actually, let me just grab the DVD, because it does say in the booklet what I think was missing.
Ah, okay.
So it looks like in the extended edition there was we learn a bit more about Kachanski's background, and we also would have follow the cat on a deranged journey of logic, which seems to place him at the center of the universe. I'm intrigued what that's about.
Well, yeah, I mean, I might go back and check it just for that. That sounds weird and wavy. But... yeah,
and the title sequence, as you said.
Oh, that it does say that, does it? It's included the full title sequence, right? Okay. Well, at least we know that was intentional. But Yeah, there you go. But also I noticed where before you hit play on the extended one on the Blu-ray anyway, it points out there's no laughter track for some reason.
Oh, okay.
Which would have been interesting because it would have just been weird. But yeah, I might go back and watch that now eventually just to see.
Yeah. But as you said, we do have some regular features we like to do. So the first of those is favourite character.
Yes.
What's yours?
Well, even though I've criticised bits with him, I'm going to give it to Lister. I like it when Craig Charles is allowed through these scripts to like not just be the slob in a way. He gets to do more like character-driven stuff, like whether it's him attempting to act like a gentleman or when he has his claustrophobia. I don't know, like just like quieter moments with Lister, if you like, and like you said at the end, how he sort of reacts to Crichton. It feels like not typical Lister in a good way. So through all that and through the continued development he's been getting, I'm going to give it to Lister. I really enjoyed him. Kachanski was a close second. I'll give it that for similar reasons, but I'll give it to Lister this time.
Yeah, I was trying to decide between Kachanski and Lister because they both do have some nice moments. Some of them together, some of them separate. That give us an insight a bit more into their character, give them something, like in Lister's case, something to do that we don't often see from him. But I went for Kachanski in the end. I don't know if there's any particular major reason why her over Lister, but I picked Lister last week, so I thought I'd go for Kachanski this week.
Fair enough.
What about your funniest moment? What was your funniest moment of the episode?
My funniest moment? I'm going to give it to Crichton's vision. It really tickled me. Just like how it was all handled, the dialogue, the music, the acting from the three involved, and the surprise appearance of the Gelth. I mean, that alone, you know. Yeah, definitely Crichton's. It's the bit I laughed at the most. So that's what I'm going to give it to. What about you?
I'm going to give it to the Rusty Gate conversation between Kachanski and Crichton.
Okay,
which
okay.
I found quite funny.
It came out of nowhere. When she said her side, I was like, oh, okay. So...
Yeah, I think it was that moment it's particularly that moment where Crichton goes, oh, no, I was talking about the story about the gate of his grandma or something like that. And finally, we like to give these a mark out of 10, out of 10 scutters. Mm-hmm. So what is your mark out of 10 for these? How many scutters?
I'm going to give this one a 6, which I know is one of our... I don't know if that... No. Is that my lowest? Maybe. Can't remember.
I don't know. What did you give Body Swap?
We always come back. Poor old Body Swap. I think it was it lower than a 6? Maybe. I'll have to go back and listen. But yeah, I'm giving this a 6 because, like I said, especially compared to what we've had in Series 7 alone, this one feels less cohesive than the first 3. It feels less... I found it less funny. It just felt like a bit of... It probably wasn't the intention, but it just felt like a bit of we don't really know what we're doing with this episode. Or a bit we need to fill time. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like you said, we've got this spot. We can't do identity within. We got to do something. So here you go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just feels... Yeah, again, if anyone out there likes Duct Soup, great. It just didn't really click with me, as other episodes in this series have. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for me.
I am also giving it 6 out of 10. So
there you go.
Yeah, it was. There, as I said, there are individual elements, little moments in it that I really like, where we get to delve into a bit of the characters. But as a whole, it just didn't. And I can't even really put my finger on it. There's just something about it that didn't quite work for me.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was just the same. Like I came away from it being like you said, there were little moments I enjoyed, but on the whole, it was like, okay, what? Yeah, I just didn't get the same feeling I did from other episodes this series. So
yeah. Well, let us know what you think of it in the comments below if you're watching the YouTube version of this, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other places you can listen to the audio version of this podcast, then just drop us a line on our Twitter, which is at AllDeadDavePod, and you can tell us what you think about the episode on there as well.
All opinions are welcome, you know, we've all got them. So, but
absolutely,
yeah,
just because we don't like this episode, I mean, it's bound to be somebody's favourite somewhere.
Yeah, they can't all be winners, can they? But, you know. Hey, we've had a pretty good track record, though, with Red Dwarfs. Like, most of them, I think we've given, like, at least 7 or higher.
I think so,
in
yeah.
this journey. There's very few times like this where we've gone below 7, I feel. Poor old Body Swap being one of them. Which is like the episode we just seem to deride again and again and again.
Yeah, we did not get on with that one. But
No.
but let's hope next episode will be better.
Yes, fingers crossed.
And we enjoy it some more. I'm looking forward, from my own memories of it, I'm looking forward to next episode. I won't tell you why, but there is a moment in it which I have very fond memories of, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what your reaction is to it.
Right, okie doke. Well, yeah, folks, next week's clearly not one to miss then, for that reason alone. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for listening. If you want to, I've already given out the podcast Twitter account, but what about our own social medias and elsewhere on the web? Where can people find you, Adam?
You can find me on YouTube, Adam Martyn, just with a Y. I should pop up, do all sorts of stuff. I've recently started, well, at the time we're recording this, I've started to try live streaming again on YouTube, which is good fun. I've finally found a setup. You know, despite being classed as a young buck, streaming technology scares me. But I think I've found a setup that works. So yeah, hopefully by the time you're listening to this, streams will be a semi-regular thing. So it'd be great to have you there. On Twitter as well, Adam Martyn AMTV. You can keep up to date with my nonsense. And what about you, Phil?
Well, you can find me on YouTube if you're not already there listening to this. It's just Philip Hawkins, which is my name. And you can find me with this picture of me in front of some roundels. Some TARDIS roundels. I talk about all sorts of geeky pop culture. This podcast goes up there, as well as things like Star Trek, MCU, and probably the biggest portion of my channel is taken up with Doctor Who, which at the time of recording is on air right now. So I'm doing weekly reviews. It will have finished by the time this episode goes out. But if you fancy going back and seeing what I thought of all of Doctor Who Flux, then all of those reviews will be up there for you to enjoy. There we go. Thanks for listening. See you next week, I guess.
See you later.
See you later.